Hey, everybody, and welcome back to For the Booze.
For the Booze. And this week, we are doing a listener suggestion. It's been a while.
Yay, I'm so excited.
That's right. Friend of the show, Travis. I'm not going to say your last name because I'm probably going to get it wrong, and you didn't ask me to. So. But we've talked to him quite a few times. Travis is good people. And he asked us to do this case because he thought it was a very interesting one. And after I read it a bunch, I agree. It is a very interesting one. Now, there's going to be some things about this one, though, that we're going to learn that will immediately make you want to discard it as being real because of things that we've already said on this show.
Okay.
However, I think we need to hear it through till the end because this is one of the first times that we have the beginning, the middle, the end, and like kind of like where it's at now.
Oh.
This is the most complete story I think we've ever done.
Yay. And a little different too than our normal style of things.
I don't think we have. No, we've done one other one. And actually, when I was doing the research, and it is added in here, it is very it's compared to another case that we've talked about.
Okay.
Which we're going to find out.
I'm intrigued.
But we're going to be headed to Pennsylvania. You ever been to Pennsylvania?
I have.
Have Yins been to Pennsylvania?
I have. And the first time I ever heard someone say yins, I was literally like, I'm sorry, what did you just say?
I've been to Pennsylvania, well, I think once. It was cool.
I went to Pittsburgh once.
I went to Ligonier. I believe that's how you say
I
it.
have no idea where that is.
It was a very small place. It was a nice little town, though. I enjoyed it. But we are going to go there, and we are going to talk about the family haunting
of the Smurl family.
That's right. The Smurl family. I've never heard of this.
Me
I'm
either.
Surprised because, well, you're going to find out why you're surprised. I don't know how else to say it, so let's just get into this one.
All right, let's do it.
West Pittston is a borough in the greater Pittston area of Luzerne County, Pennsylvania, United States. It is located on the Susquehanna River, opposite of Pittston City. In 2020, the population was 4,644. The town once produced mine screens, glass, crackers, and many other goods. West Pittston rose to national attention in September 2011, when catastrophic flooding caused by the remnants of Tropical Storm Lee left much of the borough underwater. West Pittston was settled in the 1770s. On July 1st, 1778, during the Revolutionary War, Fort Jenkins, a Patriot stockade in present-day West Pittston, surrendered to the British under Major John Butler. It was later burned to the ground. On July 3rd, the Battle of Wyoming was fought only several miles outside of West Pittston. It was incorporated as a borough in 1857. The West Pittston Police Department was also established that same year. West Pittston was the home of Company D, 1st Battalion, 109th Infantry Regiment, which is part of the 28th Infantry Division. 2 bridges were constructed over the Susquehanna River, connecting Pittston City and West Pittston. In 1914, the Penn Bridge Company constructed the Water Street Bridge. Today, the Water Street Bridge Firefighters Memorial Bridge is illuminated by fiber optic cable. The colors of the lights can be changed manually to reflect holidays and local sporting rivalries. In 1928, a parallel bridge, the Fort Jenkins Bridge, was constructed north of the Water Street Bridge. The Fort Jenkins Bridge, which was later renamed to Dale J. Cridlow Memorial Bridge, is part of U.S. Route 11.
The Smurl family didn't have an easy go at life. They were Pennsylvanians and devout Roman Catholics who were heavily involved in church activities. The family included Navy veteran Jack Smurl, production manager at Topps Chewing Gum, his wife Janet, their 2 daughters, Dawn and Heather, and twin girls who would be born later, Shannon and Karen, and Jack's parents, John and Mary Smurl. Unfortunately for the family, everything changed for them in 1972. Hurricane Agnes hammered the state with rain and caused unprecedented flooding. The Smurls' homes were decimated, so they relocated to a nice 2-story duplex on Chase Street in the small, middle-class borough of West Pittston in Luzerne County. Agnes was one of the largest June hurricanes on record. As the front approached, a depression formed over the Yucatan on the 14th and moved eastward into the northwest Caribbean Sea. The system strengthened into a tropical storm during the night of the 15th and a hurricane on the 18th as it moved northward into the Gulf of Mexico. Moving into the Florida Panhandle as a hurricane, the system quickly weakened into a tropical depression as it moved through Georgia on the 20th. A significant trough in the westerlies approached Agnes, which led to a second low developing west of Agnes. The 2 cyclones moved in tandem and strengthened, with Agnes regaining tropical storm strength over North Carolina and moved offshore of Norfolk, Virginia. While just offshore of New Jersey, Agnes became a strong tropical storm again before it swung back inland near the western tip of Long Island, becoming absorbed into the extratropical cyclone over Pennsylvania soon after.
It is virtually impossible to determine how much of the rain that fell in the mid-Atlantic would have fallen had Agnes not existed as a moisture source for the cyclone. But Agnes was likely a major player in the rain event that ensued. This torrential rain followed the abnormally wet May weather in the middle Atlantic states and set the stage for the subsequent major flooding. The record-breaking floods occurred in the middle Atlantic states in late June and early July 1972. Many streams in the affected area experienced peak discharges several times the previous maximum on record. Estimated recurrence intervals of peak flows at many gauging stations on major rivers and their tributaries exceeded 100 years. The suspended sediment concentration and load of most flooded streams were also unusually high. The widespread flooding from the storm caused Agnes to be called the most destructive hurricane in the United States history, claiming 117 lives and causing damage estimated at $3.1 billion in 12 states. Damage was particularly high in New York, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia.
Chase Street was just like any other small town thoroughfare. Houses lined both sides of the street, and quarter-acre front yards were lush and green and strewn with life. The duplex was built in 1896. Jack and his immediate family lived on the left side, while his father and mother lived on the right. The Smurls, fresh-faced and full of new beginnings, had no idea what they were about to face. Evil already lived there, deep within the home, waiting to terrorize and haunt them for 12 cruel years. The haunting began innocently enough in January 1974. A strange stain appeared on one of the home's new carpets that had no explanation and could not be easily removed. Then the floodgates opened. A television set burst into flames. Pipes continued to leak despite being resoldered. The new sink and bathtub were unexplainably scratched. In 1975, Dawn, the oldest daughter, began telling her parents she saw people floating around her bedroom. This activity may be reminiscent to listeners who know the story of the Pritchards and the Black Monk. Just like the Smurls, the Pritchards also experienced strange figures, leaking pipes, and inexplicable mini disasters. In addition, two other infamous hauntings, the Perrin family and the Hodgson family, both had several daughters. Is it possible that the number and gender of children could also be a factor in these kinds of hauntings? In 1977, after years of intermittent and easily overlooked experiences, the phenomena inside the home began to intensify. In addition, the family also began hearing footsteps. Other incidents, like unplugged radios blaring music, cold spots randomly appearing, drawers being angrily opened and closed, also plagued the home. There were reports of a permeating aroma of rot around the home as well. Furthermore, Jack began to feel an unseen hand caress him, and the consistent feeling that he was being watched. In 1985, the activity sparked into an all-time high. During this time, Janet gave birth to the twins, Shannon and Karen, which only seemed to further increase the activity. Scratches began appearing on the family members. The walls would rattle, and the dog and Janet experienced levitation. Jack's parents, the elder Smurls, often heard insults, screams, and other loud noises emanating from the Smurls' side of the duplex. However, nothing ever appeared in their own home.
The following information paints a harrowing picture of what the family claims happened to them on different occasions. Jack and Janet Smurl in front of the house on Chase Street, the entire family, even the dog, were physically and mentally attacked by something invisible and malicious. They had, quote, been dragged from bed, slapped, and viciously scratched. They were, quote, kicked, bitten, levitated, and thrown out of bed. When Jack tried to pray with the rosary, quote, a demon dragged him from his bed. Some members of the family were pushed or tossed downstairs. Their 75-pound German Shepherd was regularly abused by the unseen entity and was picked up and, quote, slammed against walls. Jack Smurl was reportedly violated by a presence like an, quote, old woman with a young body. Her eyes were red, and her gums were green, unquote. Some sources describe the entity's body being covered in scales and pus. Janet had been assaulted in bed by an unseen force, and their oldest daughter was allegedly touched in the shower. Strange, ungodly screams and creepy groans tormented them. Hoofbeats, quote, with a goat-like clatter, unquote, ran up the walls. Pigs snorted and grunted. Disembodied footsteps trekked up and down the stairs. Voices called their names when no one was around. Banging occurred on walls and ceilings. the family saw unexplainable things like, quote, formless ghostly glows, unquote. Shadow people passed through the walls and ceilings. Foul and unusual smells plagued the family. A constant odor of something musty or rotting or burning permeated the rooms. At various times, doors opened and shut, lights flickered, and objects moved by themselves or disappeared. Claw marks appeared on the walls. Even electrical appliances were affected. Some caught on fire. The television purportedly, quote, shot across the room, unquote, or lit up without being plugged in. Both sides of the duplex had paranormal experiences. Mary Smurl heard Jack and Janet argue and curse when only Janet was home at the time. Mary also claims to have saw a black entity floating in her living room.
The Smurls contacted their church as the situation grew more dire. They asked the Diocese of Scranton for help, but were refused. Again and again, they petitioned the church to no avail. Meanwhile, they endured a non-stop stream of nightmarish activity. The Smurls then decided to reach out to Ed and Lorain Warren, demonologist and clairvoyant, allegedly. The Warrens were Roman Catholics who founded the New England Society for Psychic Research in 1952. The society's purpose was to investigate hauntings and paranormal activity around the world. They are said to have investigated over 10,000 cases, some quite well known. Amityville, the Perrin farmhouse, also known as The Conjuring, etc. The couple never charged families or individuals for investigations. There are claims that sometimes the Catholic Church discreetly asks the couple to investigate hauntings. In 1986, the Warrens, along with nurse and psychic Rosemary Frua, investigated the Smurl duplex for over 8 months. The Warrens declared the house was, quote,
haunted by 3 minor spirits and a powerful evil demon.
The Warrens, after countless attempts, found no spiritual reason why the family was targeted. They, quote,
could only surmise that the demon must have been dormant, possibly for decades, and had arisen to draw on the emotional energy generated by the girls' the 4 daughters' entrance to puberty.
And this is where we're going to stop and take a break, but how do you feel about this story so far?
I feel like it could be something, and then we pull the Warrens in, and there's just
that's what I was
a lot of things going on here.
That's
so
what
far.
I was talking about earlier about.
Right.
You'll want to write it out because it's Ed and Lorain Warren, and unfortunately, we've already said how we feel about the Warrens on this show.
I mean, you definitely have for sure.
I mean, I don't
disagree with a lot, but I feel like the beginnings of the Warrens was.
But this isn't even the beginnings. This is 30 years in.
I know, I get that.
You know, if they started in 52 and this is taking place in the mid 86, yeah, you're talking like 30 something years in. It's just crazy to me that the claims are so close to the Pritchard family that we talked about. It's almost one for one. It is almost everything that we heard about in their story, with maybe a few extras in this one, which is why I'm surprised.
I haven't heard of any slime in this one dripping from the ceilings and walls.
No,
so
we haven't. But,
bonus.
But their dog's getting pretty beat up.
Yeah, that's not okay, dude. Like, what? The dog?
It really just it just baffles me how close it is to the Pritchard family. But we do have to take an ad break, and when we get back, where there's so much more to the story that even happens after the story, because not everybody, even back in the day, agreed with this or bought into this story.
Okay.
But we got to find out a few more things first. So
All right.
Away we go.
And now, Booze Crew, back to this wild ride of an episode.
Okay, so there's so much more that we have to talk about. And it's going to get really interesting.
Oh,
It's going to get real interesting.
okay.
So let's get on with the rest of the story.
All right, well, let's do it.
The Warrens confirmed that there were indeed 4 entities attached to the house and that these were the ghosts of a kindly old woman, a psychopath, a man identified as Patrick who, in fact, murdered his wife and her lover in the same house, and a demon. This demon, with a suit, hat, and long fingernails, who always walked hunched over, was just the entity that Janet and Mary claimed to have seen some time ago, and who was in charge of controlling the rest of the spirits, whom it forced to mistreat the Smurl family. Ed and Lorain Warren prayed fervently through the house and tried to provoke the entity with a crucifix, holy water, and scriptures. The goal was to draw out the demon in order to expel it, but the situation worsened. The Warrens then contacted Father Robert McKenna, quote, a Vatican-mandated exorcist. McKenna conducted 2 exorcisms and over 50 Catholic masses, all unsanctioned by the church. The rites were unsuccessful and instead seemed to enrage the entity further, making the situation even worse. Sources differ some, especially with regard to dates and assistance. During this time, several members of the family reported being sexually violated or otherwise made ill by the entities. According to Helly Starr, quote,
Janet said she had been sexually assaulted by the shadow she had seen. One of the twins, Karen, suddenly fell ill and nearly died from this inexplicable infection. And Dawn, the second twin, she was also claiming to have been sexually assaulted by the entity. Janet and her mother-in-law had traces of beatings and bites all over their body.
Sometime into 1986, the Smurls were frayed to almost nothing. In a fit of depression, they contacted the media, hoping to find someone who could, quote, make it all go away. Their story became a media firestorm and stirred the Scranton Diocese to take some kind of action. They sent a priest to spend a few nights in Jack's left side of the duplex. The priest experienced no paranormal activity, and though the family pleaded for him to stay, he left the home. According to Janet Smurl, the demon hid when religious figures visited. The family was crestfallen. McKenna performed a 3rd exorcism, and the activity abated for a few months before the ominous entity floated around again. Priests and prayer groups from other churches came and offered support, but, like a roller coaster, the activity decreased for a short time, then returned worse than before.
Some people wondered why the Smurls didn't move. Of course, finances were stated as a big reason. The family tried to get away, but the presence reportedly followed them wherever they went. On one occasion, they went camping and saw a dark, hazy entity. They also, quote,
Heard loud banging noises atop the camper and were jostled as the camper shook.
The demon also allegedly followed them to work. It seemed nowhere was safe for the Smurl family because it was they who were haunted, not the home. After reaching out to local news, reporters began to swarm the Smurl home. Public interest was heightened. Even Jason Miller, the actor who played Father Karras in The Exorcist, visited the Smurls and offered his support. In just a short time, dozens of people crowded around the Smurl home. At times, the crowds were dangerous. People tried to break into the home out of morbid curiosity. Cars cruised by and rubbernecked. Camera crews were congested outside the Smurl residence, standing nearly shoulder to shoulder, and eventually set up equipment in the neighbors' yards. Instead of helping, publicity sensationalized their situation and reduced them to something like a carnival attraction. The family ultimately told the reporters to leave. In December 1986, The Haunted, a book about their experiences written by Robert Curran, was published. A made-for-TV movie by the same name came out in 1991. Rumors swirled about the Smurls, saying they drummed up the activities in their home as a way to make money. Rumors of the haunting being a fake were further bolstered when information came out that Ed Warren contacted Robert Curran and suggested he write a book about the Smurls and their haunting. It was during this time of the alleged activity that rumors began to swirl about the family. Many believed the family might be looking to sell their home or make money off the haunting, as they had recently fallen on tough times. The Smurls and the Warrens were heavily scrutinized and criticized. Philosophy professor Paul Kurtz was chairman of the Committee for the Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal. He poo-pooed the Warrens' assessment and claimed their investigation wasn't, quote,
objective, independent, or impartial.
Further, Kurtz claimed the Warrens had, quote,
no credentials in the scientific or parapsychological communities.
And he went so far as to say the Smurl family should undergo psychiatric examinations. After the Smurls went public, Kurtz gathered investigators and offered to inspect the home. But both the Smurls and Warrens rebuffed them. They felt Kurtz had already made up his mind not to believe their story, and as such, was insincere about, quote, gathering evidence. Still, the committee conducted extensive phone interviews with, quote, the Smurls, neighbors, and reporters working on the case. Mentalist George Joseph Kresge Jr., aka, quote, the Amazing Kreskin, worked to debunk the Smurls' claims by demonstrating, quote, several ways things can shake and go bump in the night without the help of the supernatural. But Kreskin never revealed his methods for these ways.
The Smurls eventually moved from Chase Street in 1987. However, the activity followed them to their new home until a church-sanctioned exorcism was performed in 1988 or 1989. After this exorcism, the Smurls were finally free. The Warrens told in some later files and interviews that this case was one of the most disturbing they had to face in their whole life as paranormal investigators, and they felt bad because they couldn't put an end to it no matter how hard they tried. Now, Jack's father died in 1990, and his mother died 5 years later. Jack himself passed away in 2017 after complications from diabetes. Subsequent people who lived at the duplex on Chase Street reportedly experienced no paranormal activity. And Karen Smurl, who was younger than 10 at the time, said her father worked to protect the family from onlookers and naysayers once their story started to spread through television and newspaper stories. Quote,
I remember once it got out into the media, we had people knocking on our windows and doors, bricks thrown through our window. People were terrorizing us. He was scared too, but he was always the tough one,
she said. She remembered one day while reporters and curious neighbors swarmed their front yard, her father and grandfather sat on the front porch, holding their rifles. Quote,
My dad would have done anything he could to protect us. We just learned to always have each other's back.
Paranormal investigators and reporters descended upon the family in their West Pittston home. Famed, quote, demonologist Ed and Lorain Warren of Connecticut investigated the family's claims and concluded several demons haunted the home, 4 benevolent and 1 violent. The family sought exorcisms and other help to end the hauntings. The incidents stopped by October 1986, and the family moved back to Wilkes Barre in 1988. From that time on, Karen Smurl said her father put the incidents behind him and focused on his work at Topps Chewing Gum in Duria and his immense involvement with his family and his community. She said he served as secretary of West Pittston Lions Club and remained heavily involved with the first Holy Rosary Church in Wilkes Barre and later St. Leo's Church in Ashley. Quote,
At church bazaars, he'd be the one flipping burgers on the grill,
she said. She and her sisters all played sports in school. She and twin sister Shannon were all-star athletes at GAR and played on the Wilkes University women's basketball team. She said her father attended nearly every game and participated in every booster club he could. Quote,
He'd be the father bringing the Gatorade and the snacks. He'd be the loudest guy screaming for all the kids.
When Karen Smurl shared the news about her father's death, she said she heard from childhood teammates about their memories of her father. Sherry Andrzejewski called Jack Smurl the team's, quote, biggest fan, who often gave her rides to games and cheered her on. Quote,
As a teenager, I didn't have parents who came to support me or our team, and I didn't have rides to Summer League. And I had nobody to be proud of me,
she wrote to Karen Smurl. Quote,
Your dad was our biggest fan. Always made sure that we all had a ride. And both of your parents were just the absolute best to me.
Karen Smurl said her father treated all of the kids in the neighborhood like his own. Quote,
I always said my parents had 100 children, not 4.
Karen Smurl, 38, works as a social worker and occasional paranormal investigator. She said what happened to her family inspired her to pursue paranormal investigation and help others who had similar experiences. Jack Smurl was proud of her for helping others, she said. Quote,
We had such a hard time and nobody to turn to. He was happy I was a voice out there for people who needed help.
She tends to assist by offering a Catholic perspective to existing paranormal teams in the state. Because of what she experienced, Karen Smurl said she knows she'll see her father again one day. Quote,
I'm just looking at it like he's just another guardian angel. Now my dad is just looking out for us on the other side.
And that is the story of the Smurl family.
The Schmiegel family?
Well, the listeners aren't going to get that reference. We're not making fun of the family. We're making fun of Megan's inability to say their name.
Yeah, it was rough.
It'll be edited out, but she had a few different variations of the name.
I did.
But that's
the Schmurls.
That's the Smurl family, and it's a very interesting story because I'd never heard of it, and it mimics so closely to the Pritchard family, which I probably would have said about this one had we did the Pritchard family second.
Right.
But
no, absolutely. It really does. There are just so many specific similarities in both of them that it's just hard to not see it if you know both stories. And now we do.
Yeah. It's I think this one kind of takes it a step further, honestly, though, because there's a lot of talk about like sexual assault in this one.
Yeah. That was a little rough.
It's uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable to talk about because they're children,
Like
so
young children, like young children.
No, I did go to the internet to just see what kind of videos and stuff I could find about this. It's really all just Ed and Lorain talking about it.
Oh, okay.
I'm not playing that. So if you guys out there would like to find that, by all means, just look up Smurl. I just Googled Smurl family EVP. I just wanted to see what I could find. So there's plenty of it out there. It's well documented. Everything Ed and Lorain did was very documented.
It was very immediate.
Media?
Very media stricken. Everything that they did.
Well,
everything.
There was a part I left out, but people were calling for the next Conjuring movie to be this story.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. It's so different from the parent family.
Yeah.
So I don't see where people like went to this.
Well,
I don't know.
Because the Conjuring series, the problem is, all right, so the day and age we live in now, we're not even talking about the Smurls anymore, but the day and age we live in now, when you hear Conjuring movie, you automatically think parent family.
Absolutely.
But where in the name of that house or that family is Conjuring?
Nowhere.
Exactly. So the Conjuring is the film name. It's the
right. No,
the series name.
I get that.
So they did the Edinburgh what was it called? The Einfeld haunting. That was one of them. That was
The
number
Enfield?
2. Whatever. It's EI. It's EI. I don't care.
It is, but it's the infield haunting.
I don't care. I'm American. I'm not British.
I was like, the what?
The Einfield. I don't care. I'm going to say it how I want to say it.
Okay.
Schmeagol.
Schmeagol.
But there's that one. There's, the Perrin family.
Mm-hmm.
There's The Devil Made Me Do It, which was about Arnie.
Yeah.
So none of them.
I mean, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, they're all over the place. So it would make sense because honestly, I feel like the Enfield haunting, the Pritchard family haunting, and now the Smurl family haunting, I feel like those 3 are similar.
Yeah. I could definitely see that.
So that's just my opinion. I see the similarities more than the Perrin family, what they talk about happening. I don't, I know we said we thought it was real, and I do to an extent.
Right. Do I think there was goop dripping from the ceilings and the walls?
Well,
no.
Their story is, I'm just trying to because Ed and Lorain, it just seemed like all the family hauntings they did were so close together, but why was the Perrin one so different? Was it because it was earlier, maybe? They hadn't quite honed that in yet?
Maybe. Huh.
Okay, whatever.
Interesting thing to think on.
When it comes, the Smurl family was so well documented. It's even in the public news, So, I have to ask you a question now, and the question is it real? Do you think there is truth to the Smurl family haunting?
Do I think there's truth to it? Yes.
Okay.
I do.
Okay.
I can see that they may have had a haunting. They may have had a ghost. Now, how the Warrens went from these specific ghosts and one demon to 5 in the end, I don't know how that happens, but I think, yes, they may have had a ghostly thing happening in their house. Do I think it went to the extent of sexual assault and all the other things that they claimed? For one, I hope not. And for two,
well, let's be fair. So. You've been touched. Maybe not in that manner, but
not in that manner.
You claim you've allegedly been touched. I've touched you.
Allegedly.
I don't know about a ghost.
Allegedly.
But allegedly, right?
Yes, I have.
So why would it be so far off to say that it just wasn't touching different parts of them?
And I get that.
Because sexual assault is sexual assault according to the no, it's unwanted assault that can be, construed as a sexual manner by the individual. So if I grab your knee, I'm not assaulting you, but if some random dude runs his hand up your thigh, you're being assaulted.
Yeah.
So it all depends on the individual. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, when you put it that way, yeah, for sure. But I don't know. I think I'm going to have to say like a 50-50 on this one.
Okay.
I think they may have had a ghost. Do I believe the extremes and extents of the story? No. So I'm like split
Okay.
down the middle on this one. See,
Oh.
hence the 50-50.
Right.
So, what about you, babe?
You know, I am going to say the things that I do like are that this all started off with a hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
And
Storm
the storm energy.
all
Yeah,
that,
exactly. And I also do think that there is something behind paranormal activity and girls,
Oh, for sure.
because I could see how that emotional change could charge something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I mean, boys go through things like that
Not
too.
like-
It's not as emotional,
not like
no.
girls.
But
Boys just smell worse and eat more. And spend a lot of time alone in their room.
I don't. I'm not ready for that.
Yours is right around the corner.
Oh, God.
Just knock before you go in.
Mm.
But I'm sorry, Travis. I don't think this is real.
Okay.
I don't. There are too many things that point to the Smurl family needing money. And then, amazingly, they're writing books and movies, and they just one day move somewhere new and somebody does an exorcism, but they got money now. And then it just stops.
No one else who moves in there
I think
has anything.
I think the extent of their... No, I won't say that. I'm not going to say it's completely fake. This is how I'm going to put it. I think they were about as haunted as we were in Florida.
That's a good comparison.
I think it was about like that. You know, maybe they saw some stuff and heard some stuff. Maybe they weren't even 100% sure. And maybe they reached out to Ed and Lorain, which I had also read that the only reason that they were able to get Ed and Lorain is because at the time, Ed and Lorain were in Jim Thorpe. Do you remember we did the Jim Thorpe in?
Yeah.
They were over there, so they came out and checked this out. And I wonder if they convinced them to kind of beef up the story to make money. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say maybe they saw some stuff in their house.
See, and that's what I'm saying. Like, they may have had a ghost.
But
Like, we
I-
had a ghost at our old house,
when-
but it wasn't anything like this.
When Ed and Lorain come in, honestly, my gut reaction is just to be like, it's not real.
Yeah, agreed.
Because nobody's going to convince me otherwise that they are not fake. I'm just not going to be convinced. So that's where I stand.
Okay.
You said 50-50. I'm not even going to give them enough for a stamp. I just don't think that there's enough there.
Okay.
Like, I get that the story itself, yes, is if it was real, yeah, it would be super tragic and awful, but
Absolutely. I mean, the dog.
I just don't buy into it, unfortunately. How about the fact that they reached out to the church and the church said, all right, we'll send someone. But of course, nothing happened. And then they said, oh, he was hiding because there was a religion. Well, what about the other priest that was already there who was seeing stuff?
Or, like the one who came with Ed and Lorain.
That's what I'm saying, him.
I know.
That's what I'm saying, him. So, like,
Yeah.
if he's seeing stuff, but now they're saying, but when the local church sent somebody,
There's nothing.
there's nothing there. They saw nothing, experienced
He's
nothing.
hiding.
He's hiding. But why wasn't he hiding from the other one? Or it, or they, or whatever it is they're claiming. So, unfortunately, that's where I'm at. So there's no stampy stamps.
No stamp. Sorry, Travis.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good story, and
is.
I actually do hope they make this into a movie because I think it would be a very cool movie.
Yeah.
But in the real life world, I just don't know if there's enough there. So it's getting a no. And where can they find us?
They can find us on Instagram at @forthebooze_podcast and on Facebook at forthebooze.
That's right. You can also find us on X at For the Booze. You can find us on YouTube at For the Booze. I swear to you people, we are going to do videos.
We keep saying that for many, many weeks.
Dude, I'm trying.
I know.
I'm not a computer guy. And you can also find us on Patreon if you would like to help support the show. And we have a shout out from Patreon. And this is another friend of the show, Joe Mattern.
Joe.
He is a show producer. He joined the producer level.
Yay!
So what a dude. Thanks, man.
We have our first producer.
That's right. He's the awesome.
Thanks, Joe.
He's like the Booze Crew general.
He is. He is.
So
the lead general.
So Joe, as soon as I figure out how to slap that ad-free content up on Patreon for you, you will be getting that. I'm going to be looking into that tonight and tomorrow. So,
Yay.
I appreciate you. Thank you. You've been an ongoing supporter, though. So, with or without the Patreon, we appreciate you and all you listeners. And
every single one of you as well.
We got another review on Apple, so thank you very much for that 5-star review. And we've picked up a few here and there on Spotify. So we really appreciate you guys. It really does help get our name out there. So
it does. It helps the show, and honestly, it helps our hearts.
Yeah.
We love it.
So lame.
I know, but I don't know. It's crazy because we started.
You said it like a Disney movie.
We started this thing, and
Nobody listened.
No one listened for so long, and it was very defeating. It really was. But we enjoy doing this. We enjoy what we do, and we want to do bigger things.
I think what made it worse was that we had this early sign of what we thought was going to be success.
Yeah.
When we had Paranormal Nightmare TV on.
Yes, love those guys.
We have thousands of listeners, and then nobody came back.
I know, it was strange.
It's very deflating.
It was just this build up, and people, it was just the numbers kept growing, and then all of a sudden the next few weeks we were
went away.
right back down.
But
to
we
where we were.
honestly we have a core group now, so a few hundred people.
Do.
So we appreciate all you guys for staying with us, and
we most certainly do.
Hopefully this new format from this show isn't too jarring, and if you like it, let us know. We'll keep it going. But if you say nothing, I'll keep it going. So I kind of like it.
We're trying to switch it up, see what other things we can do.
We're throwing sketty at the wall and seeing what sticks.
We are, because like we said, we want to make this thing bigger and better.
That's right.
The only way we can do that is to know what you guys like.
That's right. And don't forget, if you have a listener story that you would like to share, I know if you're new here, you probably don't know what I'm talking about, but we do like to do listener stories and read them on here and make them cool.
We do. So if you've ever had a paranormal experience or a brush with death or, anything, we love to read other people's stories and share the things that we like to read and hear. And, we like the interaction from you guys as well.
And if you have a listener suggestion like we did this week from Travis, send it in. forthebooze12@gmail.com is where you can do all that. And don't forget, 5 stars, rate, and review. Because it helps.
Right.
Because it helps.
It most certainly does.
2 best ways right now, Patreon and reviews.
Well, now that we're done being all sappy about you guys.
Is this where we're going to end it?
I think it is.
All right, well, let's end this thing.
So, everybody, thank you so much for listening. And we will see you in the next one.
Bye. I'm going to go to bed and hope a ghost doesn't touch my no-no.